Hello and welcome to episode 111 of The Imperial Truth. I'm Greg, and joining me, as usual, is Mr. Neil.
Hello, Greg.
Hello, Neil. How are you doing?
Not bad. How are you doing?
I'm grand. 111, one for the cricket fans. I'll be sitting here with one foot up in the air. We'll move on from that joke because it's pretty poor, but it's just creeping on. Before we go anywhere else, Element Games. We are recording this last minute. Games Workshop have announced that Doom of Moloch, the next book for Adeptus Titanicus, is being released the Sunday following this release. We got Doom of Moloch, cards for the knights, and some more terrain pieces as well. So plenty of cool stuff to be looking at there. And that'll be 20% off in the first week. Also, now Demons of the Ruinstorm are actually out. Loads of plastic stuff to buy from loads of different places. There are so many different ways to make demon armies. We're going to go into Book 8 at some point. Not going to do it now. Everyone else is doing it now. If you want to go and hear about the armies and the background and everything else, cool. All the other Heresy podcasts are doing a good job on that. We're going to leave it a show or two, I think, and see what we can do. But I am looking at demon armies for myself. In fact, I bought some Skaven Gnorholes, I think they're called, as my demonic summoning portal things, because they're about the right size and they look kind of cool and funky. So got some of them to then add to my big shopping list of what I need for demons, which might take me a while because of the way I want to do it. But you can find Element Games. Go through this link on the show, and you can get you can support the show as you're buying all your hobby needs. I do want to mention here as well, because I know some people don't necessarily listen to the end of the show. Patreon. Patreon, for those who don't know, it's essentially a tip jar for content creators. Some people use it with different levels to access more stuff and things. I've completely gone back, hopefully for the final time, and removed those aspects of Patreon. I'm not very well organised, as you probably know, dear listener, and I don't want to put pressure on myself to deliver something and then not do it. I think that's terrible. We're using Patreon purely as a tip jar now. If you believe that this show has benefited you to the point where you want to pay any amount of money at all, then you can use Patreon. $1 a month is the minimum. We only charge per month anyway. You can pledge as much as you like. If you do choose to do so, we are eternally grateful. The guys who supported us on Patreon, I'll give you this opportunity now. If you were in for some of the rewards and you want to reduce it, that's cool. I'd rather lose that money and have you happy than not deliver on something moving forward. So yeah, that's Patreon. If you want to support us, you can. It's we're not earning huge amounts of money from this podcast, unfortunately. That would be lovely if we could, but it goes towards paying for all the fees we pay yearly. Again, just had the renewal of the website and everything else. That all comes out of that money, and it's gratefully received. So thank you, Neil. We're back from Adepticon. Have you been having a hobby hiatus, or are you pumped?
Hobby hiatus mainly. I've only literally started painting the inside of a cloak a day or so ago, and not doing a lot else. I've taken the time to sort of catch up on a lot of sleep.
Sure, yeah.
So I think I slept virtually 10 hours a night for the first week being back.
Yeah, Adepticon does that for you. Yeah.
Just trying to catch up on all that missed sleep and all the jet lag and everything else. So I did that for a while, and since then I've just been taking a nice gradual sort of slow burn back into it, really, rather than getting straight back into doing hours upon hours. Just want to keep my skills there, but I don't want to go into sort of the mad painting marathons. I'm going to have a lot of time during the day to do some painting, so I'm going to hopefully next week or the week after get into some sort of day painting rather than late night painting. So
Sure.
hopefully that will be of a benefit.
Okay, cool. I must admit, I've got my Venatari out. They're almost done, which is cool. The Demons of the Ruinstorm, we probably end up talking about them a lot at various points. That has excited me as a list. I went through all my old Khorne demon stuff and took kind of sorted out bases. I need to take everything off bases that I want to repaint, and ones I had some different bases. I've had to take the ones off those and sort them out and work out what I'm doing with them, because some of the 40k stuff, if you're going to use the GW demons, I don't think some of the 40k stuff really fits. I want to be constructive about what I use. So Bloodletters, I'm going to be doing a Khorne-esque list, but I don't want it to be overtly Khorne, if you know what I mean. So, and also the way the base sizes work in the game, there's a big discussion on the base sizes for demons. They handily Forgewell put in there that it's just a guideline, which some people are taking to mean, put them on whatever base you want. I think I want to get near to those base sizes where possible, because if a base size for a model is 130 mil and you're putting something on a 50 mil base, that's a big difference. That means you can hide it a lot easier. That means less people can get into base-based contact with it. I would like to think maybe that some of the rules and things have been adjusted for the base sizes. It's something I'm going to try and talk to the guys at Warhammer Fest when I go, actually. What I've found, though, big time for any of the kind of ideas I've had is I don't want to be like obviously Khorne and use Bloodthirsters for all my big things and stuff like that. I'm looking at the Mercia miniature range of Inferni, they're called, or Infernii, which are kind of hellish demons. They're obviously designed, some of them are obviously designed to be Greater Demon Khorne replacements and have been used as such in Warhammer and 40k for a while. But there are some really cool fiendish, hellish monsters there, which I'm going to use for my big models, and then have Bloodletters and Juggernauts of Khorne and maybe Fleshhounds as well in there to combine those two, I think, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm kind of...
I must admit, you sent me a link for those models, and I'd never really looked at them before, and I thought they looked amazing. They really did look cool.
Some of them do. Some of them go together better than others. Some of them need a bit more green stuff work than I'd be maybe comfortable doing. But Mercia have got an interesting line. Donkeys years ago, they made the Chimera, which is the Forgewell designer who did the Forgewell Greater Demons. He made that Chimera, and it's still one of the most beautiful models I've seen, I think. And he finished it off because he went to join Veta Workshop, doing all the Lord of the Rings stuff and all that jazz. And that model is fantastic. And so you get some stuff like that, and then you get some where I'm like, yeah, that's nowhere near the same level. But there are, if you look through the line, there's some beautiful stuff on there. Unfortunately, some of the big stuff is expensive because it's big, which is understandable, but it'll be a bit of slow grow. So I've got a few decisions to make. One of the big things is like when you get to basically the way demons work, we'll go into it later, but you buy a base demon of whatever type, and then you can add emanations of hate, or I think they're called, or horror, emanations of horror. These are things which then give them special rules. So you can buy claws which give you rending, or wings which give you basically jump pack moves. You can buy extra armor and things like that. The problem is representing them in different units, because not every unit's going to have the same mix. So I want Bloodletters as my base troops, but some of those Bloodletters are going to have a better armor save than other Bloodletters, and some might have rending attacks where others don't. So I've got to kind of work out a system to make them look different so they're easily identifiable on the table, but also I'm only using bloodletters because if you start
it's like different weapons or different armor or something on them.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little bit tricky to get right, I think. And there's, it doesn't have to be perfect. I think, sometimes in a list, maybe I just choose what, I don't take something. And some of them don't need like to be visible on the model per se. Like there's one, basically you counter, you ignore, if you charge through terrain, you don't lose your initiative for doing so. That I don't necessarily think that has to be modelled on the model, unless it's only on one unit in an army, that kind of thing. But if everyone's got it, then it doesn't matter. I think that's fair.
Yeah, sure.
But if I've got one unit with 3 up armor save and one unit with 4 up armor save, I think it's only fair that people can see that visibly.
Yeah, certain rules are, and you need to sort of know. It's like looking at the weapons on a space marine, isn't it? Which one's the heavy weapon and which one's the special weapon. You never like that popping. Oh, yeah, that guy's got a melting gun. Oh, has he?
Yeah,
looks like a bolter.
Yeah. Oh, so no. Yeah. Well, the worst thing is, you told me that 4 turns ago, but I've forgotten because he hasn't got a melter gun. So again, I think you've got to be a bit sensible and a bit fair to your opponent as well. So there's a few things, and lots of people are doing some crazy, awesome things. I was looking at other lines, and I kind of, because in Heresy. Well, I mean, not just in Heresy. Demons can take on more forms than we see. 40k in Age of Sigmar obviously push the 4 gods. Very iconic. In 30k, more so than those others, we're supposed to have, the Imperium doesn't know about those 4 kind of prime gods of chaos that well. And so these demons are supposed to just be proper chaotic, ruinous powers demons. So there are, there's part of me wants to not use bloodletters at all, but finding something that fits within that. Unfortunately, that range of Inferno, I only go down to like ogre size models. If they did one smaller, I might be jumping on them. But to have that fit through an entire line, I think is quite difficult unless you really go to work. People are using Sylvaneth models from Age of Sigmar. They can be very alien, which is really cool. I think when you've got Chaos Demons, to have something that's very, very alien is really awesome. But again, you've got a limited range of models to choose from, and then just adding in some regular looking dogs as hounds, to me, doesn't necessarily fit right. I'm sure Forge World at some point will release plenty of demons, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that one, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, it's almost one of these really exciting aspects of the new book, I'd say, is the demons and how you can customize them and how you can go out there and cannibalize all the different hits that are out there to make things look unique. And I think that's one of my favourite things of the hobby.
Yeah,
is when you have the open ability to go, right, well, what am I going to make this look like? What am I going to use?
Yeah, and I don't play at Games Workshop stores. I go up to Warhammer World every now and then. I won't be able to take this army. That's fine. I'm cool with that. I'll have another army to take, but most of my games are in independent gaming clubs or at independent events, so it's not a major issue for me. But it would be nice. So just having a little thing, and I'm sure the problem is I'm not a great hobbyist either in that respect. I can't sit there and one of the guys, I can't remember his name, has taken horror models and then green stuffed over their heads, so their heads are smooth from like the top of the head all the way down to the mouth, and like, so horrors are this weird alien creatures anyway, but as soon as you do that, you take away any human features off of them, like eyes and nose. So they are just these things with claws and a mouth and this domed head. Then they become properly alien. And it has an amazing effect on those models. It really does. My green stuff is probably not even up to that. So, hey ho. But it's a challenge to go forwards. But I'm really excited to see what other people do. And I've been searching. So Mercia Miniatures, I think for those Infernii are fantastic. There are other models as well. Druk, DRUC. There was another model I was looking at for, say, one of the behemoths. It's basically it's this hulking creature with this maw, but again, it doesn't really have a face. But they do some other models, and there's other companies out there as well doing lots of different things. But again, people are talking about for the size of so there's things like shrikes, which are flying monstrous creatures, and people are talking about dragons, and I'm like, well, cool, but then it just looks like dragons. It doesn't look alien enough to me. It's hard.
Look a bit weird being demons as well, isn't it? It's got to look a little bit off the wall.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do that, fine, that's cool. But for me, if I see a dragon on the table, part of me is just going to think, oh, cool, dragons. You can do stuff to them, and I was considering it. I was looking around at different options. There's some Privateer Press Everblight models that are dragon-esque, but again, different. But there wasn't enough in that line for me to feel comfortable with using them as demons. And I want to make the whole army feel right. And Shrikes is a big one for me, and I'm contemplating using a Tyrannid in there. But even then, I'm going to have to do something to the Harpy.
You have to work that to make that look right.
Yeah, I think most of it's there, but I'll have a look at it at some point and see what I can do. Because again, you've got the difference between having demons that can actually fly and demons with jetpacks, or jetpack moves, and just having wings on a model is not always like your opponent's going to be looking at models that aren't Forge World, aren't GW, and are very different, and both have wings, but one of them's a flying creature and one's a jetpack creature. So
yes, yeah.
So I want something that's actually flying, and the good thing about the Harpy is it's in that flying pose. So it looks like a monstrous creature that's flying. So I think we'll see. Well, who knows? I'll get around to it at some point. But yeah, that's and I'm sure we'll go into talking about what I'm doing with demons. There are a couple of Facebook groups for Demons of the Ruin Storm. Find them. There's some discussions about base sizes, which I think is a bit, OTT. But there we go. Whatever, get along. Make sure wherever you're playing. I am thinking for my events, I will have kind of a. I think if the base size is, it's recommend. The problem is the recommendations are all a little bit off as well. So like Demonic Beasts, the base size isn't what the cavalry comes on in Age of Sigmar on 40k. So you can go and buy your Juggernaut and then put it on a different base, and it's like, okay, how much different is it? Is that relevant? But when a Bloodthirster comes on a base that's oval, and I think it's only 90 mil, something like that, 80 mil wide, and then all of a sudden you should be putting it on a 130 mil round base. That's a big difference in volume. And does that make a difference in game? I think there's a line there somewhere. I don't know where it is, but I know for sure that my Demon Lord, who's supposed to be on a 130 mil base, I'm not going to put him on a 60 mil base. I think that's wrong. So somewhere between those two, there's a line. I don't know where that is, but I think for events I run, I will maybe put in a thing somewhere about being sensible with that and making sure. And you know what? If you're happy with your demons being on 50 mil bases instead of 130 mils, cool. Maybe not bring them to my event, because I think you've got to have some consistency. But that's a discussion that hopefully we're going to have online in a nice manner and work out and what have you, because I think it needs to be done. But hey ho! So yeah, that's so that's demons done for a little bit. I'm sure we'll talk more about them coming soon. I I have updated the pack for the Cardiff event in August, Dalen Prime. So things like Centurion now has a points level. Yay! So we can, it's people who can plan, who want to plan, can plan for that. Tickets are selling. There are still plenty left. And I have put in my first order of terrain. We're hopefully, because I think I'm going to have to paint it, we are hopefully going to have a Zone Mortalis table that I'm going to be bringing with me. And it's made by Dark Fantastic Mills. So I'm going to put a link in the show note. When the stuff arrives, I'm going to show it off on Twitter and Facebook and hopefully Instagram as well. But it is essentially, they're a 3D printing company up north somewhere. And they started off doing some Age of Sigmar stuff, but they do a range called the Firebase. And it has, junction blocks, walls, half walls, blast doors, and all the stuff you need to make a Zone Mortalis table. But it also has floor and stair sections, so they can go on top of the walls, and you can use it in 40k as buildings, which you can climb on. Yeah, and I think it's really cool. I think the price is very reasonable for what you're getting. I know some people have cardboard Zone Mortalis, and the cardboard slides around a lot and everything else. And it's great, don't get me wrong, it serves a purpose, those cardboard things. If you're going to do a lot of tables like running an event and every table is going to be Zone Mortalis, then that's a really sensible way. They look good, that's cool. As people who do MDF versions, I'm not a fan of MDF. When MDF was the best option, was the top level of option, that was fine. But now 3D printing's out, I'm like, I'd rather go cardboard or 3D printed, frankly.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of MDF terrain now. I think it's had its day. Yeah,
I think with 3D printing, these companies going out there and doing it, I think you can get better stuff potentially for what you're doing. But yeah, I mean, everyone's going to have their own opinion on that, aren't they?
Yeah,
but they look. I think this stuff looks really good. Let's say we're going to have a table of it, and they're going to sponsor, and there's going to be some. I think they're actually going to send some gift vouchers as well on top, so we can look through that. And the other thing I love about 3D printing actually is right now it takes so long to make stuff that the businesses aren't scalable. So I don't think we're going to get one company for a while yet coming out dominating the market. So what you're going to get is you're going to get these people doing it here, there and everywhere, and they're all going to have their own different things. So we might actually get this real strong variety of different stuff, which as a consumer might be the best thing. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'm proved wrong. But yeah,
cool.
That's cool. And and I will update with more sponsors. I'm kind of almost. Well, actually, yes, no. Miles, Little Legend Studio, they're going to be sponsoring probably the Best Painted Army with a little kind of paint kit as well. Hopefully, Miles will be playing in the event. But as more come in, we will keep people updated. So you can find out all that information on the Facebook page, events. You can go through the links in the show notes as well. The Reckoning of Dalen Prime. That's all there. Before we move on, we probably should mention that Sanguinius is out and out of stock.
Oh, really? I didn't know it was out of stock.
Him and his base are both out of stock. I think it's fair to say they've sold well. I think it's one of those pieces where maybe people who don't even play Heresy have really jumped on.
Yeah, I could imagine a lot of 40k players, would buy that model. I mean, let's face it, there's not going to be a 40k version coming out anytime soon.
I hope not. Yeah.
So obviously, there's a lot of Blood Angel players out there. I could see people buying that just for the sort of
And
having a big Blood Angel army, I'm going to buy Sanguinius. He's amazing.
Even without his story and his ending, he's iconic. When
yes, definitely.
More than almost every other Primarch. Sanguinius he kind of lives up to what he is in the books, where he was everything. He was the hope and everything else, and set up to take on the mantle and all that jazz. So I'm not surprised at that. And I'm sure that they will get bases back in before they stop selling them, because they've still got that limited time, haven't they?
Yes.
But yeah, I'm sure that'll be back in soon. And we also got the Crimson Paladins with their shields and swords. Fantastic models, aren't they?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm not overly taken with them, but that may be the paint job. So
that's fair enough. I mean, they are way over the top, but then they should be as Blood Angels, shouldn't they?
Oh yeah, definitely.
It is. I like them. I think they're gorgeous. And we also got the White Scars Praetor with his eagle.
I like that model.
Yeah, it's quite funny. I saw someone was like, a few people are a little bit disappointed that he's very static, and I'm like, but like, you don't need every single model of yours to be running everywhere all the time, like.
Constantly running.
Yeah, exactly.
Never standing still.
He's a White Scar. That's what they don't stand still, and it's like yes, it's not exactly how it works. I think he's imposing, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I think it's a cracking model, and the Contemptor Dreadnought as well.
Yes, and we've discussed this previously, but I'm a big fan of all the new White Scar range.
That's very cool, and they've done some bundles. I don't know if they save any money, but they've got a Day of Revelation bundle and a Chagorian Brotherhood bundle as well. It's good advertising. Someone might click on that who wouldn't have otherwise bought all that stuff. So, and Book 8 is now kind of out there and being absorbed and taken in. I've started mine, and I'm going to take my time with it. I think. There's some pretty cool stuff in there. It's just nice to have that, as we said before, it's nice to have that product out now.
Yes, in hands and being absorbed into community. It feels like an age, but nice to have it out there. Yeah,
and people talking about it, and generally talking about it in the right way. There are always going to be issues. Like, no gaming product will ever be released that's perfect when it has rules in it, right? There are some small issues, even the ones that cause big problems, they're still small issues in terms of how they're resolved. I don't think anyone needs to... I haven't seen anything yet where people need to jump up and kind of get out of their, kind of pants about it. People are like, oh, you can't do this with this. And it's like, well, it seems fairly obvious that that wasn't supposed to be written that way, or that it's implied that it works a different way. So I think most people will let you do that kind of thing. So, yeah, but the background side of things seems to be going down very well.
Excellent. Well, that's good.
It is good, yeah. And you never know what now. We've got a rules team, a writing team that aren't working on 40k rules anymore. So whether they're 100% working on Heresy now, or whether they've still got other stuff, I'm not 100% sure. But hopefully we will see. Well, I don't know how it's going to unfold, but I would like to think that we might be able to get that more stuff that's in between books. Whether that's an FAQ, whether that's, rules coming out for models that don't have them yet, that kind of thing, and being, worked on, and maybe some stuff where we've had those experimental rules come out and they've been out for a year and a half, maybe come out, be played with, and then be made kind of official online. We can hope.
Yeah, hopefully so. I mean, hopefully this will be the catalyst to get things started again.
Yeah, GW are kind of settling down. I get the feeling now after they've still got, I know there's still lots of staff things going on, they still haven't moved and everything else, but for this kind of expansion they've had and the things that have gone on with Forge World and Specialist and everything else, does feel a little bit more settled now than it was. But again, that's just me looking from the outside in. I could be completely wrong. It could be exactly the same as it always was, and it was always settled. But it feels, maybe it's just the book coming out, but it feels a lot more kind of cool. Things are underway. Things are going. They got this. So let's hope so.
Yeah, indeed. Let's hope so. Let's hope it's the start of lots of cool things to come.
Indeed. All right. We'll take a break there, and we'll come back and talk about Adepticon. So we are back from. It feels like ages ago, doesn't it? Adepticon.
It was like a lifetime ago.
It took me a few days to recover. I think more than ever previously, I've heard people were ill after this Adepticon. I slept for a long time once we got back. And bearing in mind, we stayed the Sunday night and flew home the Monday, didn't we?
Yes.
So it wasn't like we weren't like coming straight from being shattered to a plane to a night flight. But yeah, I struggled to get up that Tuesday. I don't know how you felt.
I went from. Do you remember I said I went from Monday night arriving to back to work 9 o'clock Tuesday morning. That was hard.
Yeah, so I'm so glad this year I didn't have to. I've done it previous years, fine, but this year I was blown away. But hey, that's what it can happen when you got. I think they had 5,600 tickets sold, and that doesn't include the people who walk around without having paid to kind of get a convention ticket. So a lot of people there.
Yeah.
So your first time, my second time at this hotel. We didn't do anything else. We turned straight up after a 4-hour delay, which has turned into something beautiful, hasn't it? In that we've managed to get compensation. My compensation for that has paid for almost my whole Adepticon. I think I've probably spent, on top of that, the money I'm getting, £150, if that. You spent a bit more money because you had to get stuff for the kids. You ate out a bit more and everything else, didn't you?
I ate out quite a lot with a lot of people.
Partied.
I bought a lot of presents for the kids, and it basically paid for all of that for me. So I'm very happy.
So that was the result. The hotel. What were your impressions arriving? I don't know what you expected, to be honest.
Well, I didn't really have much expectation. I think that's the first thing, because obviously I'd heard you talk about it. I think I've spoken to it about a few people, but I hadn't really looked into it. I hadn't looked about it online, but other than the location and what was nearby. So when I turned up, I was quite impressed with the site. I mean, obviously it's a massive, massive hotel.
Yeah.
Absolutely huge. Really sort of like, quite lavish as well. It's not a bargain basement hotel. It's not something cheap and nasty. So it was very nice, and it felt great to get there. And I think the first thing we did obviously was go straight up to the room, and it was really, really impressive. Great rooms, massive hotel, and then just walking. I remember walking from the room, that first sort of moment when you're walking, you're like, come on, we're going to go and walk, because we turned up just before the GW preview.
Yeah.
We sort of just managed to squeak into it, and it was that walk that we did from the rooms to there. I was like, wow, this is like, this is quite a distance. This is like, you're walking across that. We walked across the bridge, didn't we, initially? Yeah. And I was like, wow, this place is huge. And I've sort of really found that on later on in the trip, where I'd walked around the building almost, where I'd gone out on a night out, and I was following my phone to get back to the hotel, and I'd come at the hotel from a different angle.
Right.
And I remember walking alongside the hotel going, this place is ginormous, it's absolutely massive. And yeah, it was very big, very impressive, very, as you would imagine everything to be in America, just bigger, bigger and more impressive.
Yeah, sure. And they're filling out this space now. They're getting to the point where they can't fit too much more in. They can jiggle some stuff around, but it'll be interesting to see down the line if they can find a venue. I assume they want to keep it in the same rough location. But if they can find a venue, if they want to find another venue, or they want to keep it at that size. But we walked down, that room. We did the GW seminar. Have you ever done a GW seminar before?
Well, I think so, but from like other
you've done
UK conventions,
Warhammer Fest,
but
haven't
not
you?
not really to that scale. I mean, I don't think I've been in anything that had been that sort of hyped up and almost like big surprise, like what's coming next. And there was quite a lot of that, that sort of like, oh, wow, what's coming. A lot of excited people.
Yeah,
obviously. For me, it was almost a bit of a, wow, there's not a lot here. I remember shouting out, like, when they were saying who plays what, and at the end it's like, Heresy!
Oh, yeah. Which is ironic because you don't actually play it. But
no, exactly, yeah.
It's something that's kicked off with the events. In the UK, they do one at Blood and Glory, they do one at UK Games Expo, but I think they're the only two places in the UK that they've done that style of seminar. And the reveal seminar as it is, and I think it's we arrived over 4 hours late, shattered, spending that much time in Heathrow and then like running between different gates and things and all kinds of crazy stuff. But I was like, actually, I do want to go because I could sit online, and again, it's one of those things you can sit online and you can get all that information, you can get all those photos, but there is something nice about that atmosphere, isn't there?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it is very exciting when everyone around you is getting very excited and hyped about stuff. I mean, obviously, a lot of it was going over my head with certain game systems and stuff. But you get excited when you see the new models and new stuff comes up on screen. I think that's the big thing, isn't it? When you see it, just reminds me of like the new model seminar at the Heresy Weekender.
Yeah.
Do you remember that year when the what the demon guys called the
Galvorback?
Possessed Marine, the Galvorback,
yeah.
Like, when they went up on the screen and there was all these whoops and cheers and clapping, and that it sort of reminded me of that, where everyone's getting so excited about something new.
Yeah, and it's quite cheesy, and Eddie and Pete who lead it kind of embrace that to a point, and even the art they have on the screen embraces that to a point. They've done a few of these together now. They know the game. They know how to work the crowd. But yeah, I think even when you're not interested, just seeing the cool miniatures like Warcry, people might not be that interested in playing the game, but there's loads of interesting, weird Chaos warbands that are slightly different. And then we got little glimpses in the back, say, of the Furies and things like that, which, cool models, and maybe something different you haven't seen before. So, and then of course they left the Slanesh reveal to last, and that Keeper of Secrets, I think everyone in that room was pretty intensely focused on that model. Whether I think most people loved it.
There's a lot of love for the Keeper of Secrets in that room.
It's gorgeous. But yeah, so we did
exciting.
We did that on the first night. Now you only had a couple of things planned for the whole weekend, didn't you? You were
yes.
very much enjoy the week, hang out with Richard and Andy. Richard's great, and Andy, what's his name?
Wardle.
Well, that's the bunny.
Andy Wardle.
We're out there.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show, Andy Wardle, little Andy. They were out there teaching. So
yes, yeah, they did a combined course. They did a course together.
So you were going to be hanging out with them a little bit and entering Crystal Brush and looking at Crystal Brush, and then doing other bits and not necessarily always staying on site, and that's cool.
Correct. Yep.
I limited myself to 3 events, and one of them was less than half a day. I think I woke up in the morning and was like, "Oh, we don't start till midday. That's amazing. I can just wander around and relax. It's really good." I mean, I still woke up at 6 and went for breakfast at 6:30, but that's just the way it is. But how was it as an event walking around as it got bigger and better? I appreciate you weren't playing, you weren't engaged in that respect.
Yeah, it was, for me, I intended on going to like just a couple of things, and I didn't get to either of them. I got so swept up in the whole sort of the whole event with quite a few people that I knew over there, which was cool, and then obviously meeting a few new people as well. And I got very swept up in the sort of the whole aspect of almost like a lad's holiday. That was what it felt like to me. I was hanging out with Andy and Rich. They only did 2 lessons of teaching, so I used those opportunities to go out and get presents for the kids and do other bits and pieces. And the rest of the time, it was just hanging out with a load of friends and having a great old time. And it was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. And I think if Andy and Rich hadn't been there, it may have been a very different event for me.
Sure.
Because we were all entering Crystal Brush, so we had a lot to talk about. There was a lot of that element of our stay, and then it was all the other, going out to Chicago and enjoying Chicago, and just being free to go and do what we wanted when we wanted to, and it was fabulous. It was a great holiday, really. I think I really enjoyed it, and I definitely go again if the circumstances were right. If it was another big painting competition and I maybe did something else, like maybe I was considering doing teaching maybe the next time if I went, etc., because it helps pay for it.
Yeah.
And it would it certainly breaks everything up quite nicely. And it was a really good event. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well organised as well. One of my things I did notice, and I did note quite early on, was getting registered was very easy. Everything was very slick. There was no point where I thought, well, this is a nightmare. What's going on here? Or, you always knew what was going on, where it was going on. There was loads of people on hand to help. I remember just looking at the hobby area where they had the big board up where they would say what seminars were on at what times.
Yeah.
Just looking at that, trying to work out when Andy and Rich would be out of their teaching thing, and someone coming over and saying, "Oh, you're all right. Are you looking for a course? Are you looking for your course or whatever, this, that, and the other?" And everyone was really super helpful, and it was very relaxed as well. Sort of reminded me very much of a weekender in that respect, that there was loads of places to sit down and relax. You had the bar area, the hobby area, which I thought was brilliant. The painting hobby area underneath the escalators I thought was absolutely brilliant. That place just didn't seem to stop.
Yeah.
I came back from a night out at 3 a.m. and I was walking through the hotel thinking, it'll all be quiet and packed up, and there's obviously a few people milling around. And I went to the escalators and saw about 5 or 6 people down there painting and hanging out at 3 a.m. And I just thought, this is mad.
Yeah.
You literally could hang out virtually 24/7.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which was amazing, and there was tons of people to talk to, and it was brilliant. It was really good. But we do, just for Chris's sake, we do need to talk about queues.
Okay.
And how the queues were operated. So, what did you think of the GW queue?
Let's go into that in a little bit. Yeah, you're right. It can go on late night. There are tables upstairs which are almost like free to play on if they're free, and some drunken shenanigans go on late night. Heresy games have gone on upstairs before, and will do again, I'm sure. Did you get to see much of the gaming halls, or were you caught up in your painting?
I walked around the Heresy gaming hall. That was obviously my first port of call. So I walked around all the tables there and looked at, I looked at a lot of the armies and the people playing, and the tables looked really good, really good terrain. And it was quite nice because the Heresy one was in like a little room upstairs, and it felt a little quieter than, say, the 40K hall, which was next to the vendor hall. Looked like a real headache of a place to play. Really loud, really big.
So when I went,
you can imagine that if you were in there all day, you'd feel it at the end of the day. You'd feel mentally drained. So
when I went last time, Heresy was in that room,
really?
towards the back, and it makes a difference. At the end of the day, it's a concrete floor, which is not good for walking, for your feet, for your knees, for your back. And it's a cavernous room, as you say. The vendor hall's there, but it's just a partitioned off part of the same building. So, noise fills up and reverberates. And to get a size of room required to run 40k, I don't think you're going to get many that aren't that kind of room. And it's just one of those things that if you want to go there and play 40k, you have to suffer through that. And if you're playing another game system, you have to hope you're not in that room, which is, it's one of those things that Age of Sigmar, they sold out their tickets and could have sold. I think my friend in England, he was 40 odd on the waiting list, so they could have sold more tickets. But they were running out of room in the room they were in. They had other events going on as well.
The AOS room seemed a bit nicer. It was a bit more of a carpeted, large ballroom, wasn't it? Which
the only problem with that,
friendlier.
The only problem with that is you get that ballroom, that kind of lighting, that yellowy, dull lighting to the point where to judge armies, the judges knew they were going to be there. They had torches, so they could actually shine a torch on people's armies to judge it fairly. Because there were certain parts of that. If you were near a wall or whatever, then your army was quite dark compared to others. So at the end of the day, you're not going to get a perfect space unless someone builds it, and even then, you're still going to find you could have done things better. So I think they do well with the space they have. They've been there a few years now. As you say, they know what they're doing. They run things fairly slickly. There are usually a few complaints around registering for their events. At the end of the day, there's thousands of tickets sold, and there might be 30 or 40 spaces or 20 in a painting class. People are going to miss out, and people are going to complain if they miss out. That's nature of the beast, isn't it? But you can usually find something else there to keep you occupied. What should we talk about? The vendor hall. So did you go through there much? I know you knew a couple of people. We had Artis Opus were there, weren't they?
Yes, Artis Opus were there, and Element Games
Siege Studios
were there as well. Siege Studios,
yeah.
And so I was, I knew those guys there. I walked through it initially with Andy, had a quick look around, and then I went back a couple of times on my own and filtered through. It wasn't as big as I thought the vendor hall might be.
Right, okay.
But I suppose I've only really got Salute as a point of reference from that. And I just considered that it would be massively bigger because it's Adepticon. So I thought, the vendor hall is going to be huge. So it was big, but it wasn't as big as I thought it would be. So that was quite interesting. I sort of had a look through that. I didn't buy anything. I didn't feel as though I needed to. But it was quite busy, quite a lot of people around. So I think it does what it needs to do. I think it sells quite a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, absolutely. And Salute covers for basically any wargaming you could ever think of. Adepticon's still, dominated by Games Workshop. Obviously, Privateer Press, Malifaux, and a number of other companies are there. Like X-Wing and things like that. So Fantasy Flight, have a presence there, and then other companies as well. Arena Rex, I can't remember the company that do that, but those other little things are around. But still, a lot of what was there was to service a Games Workshop audience, to be fair, I think.
Yes.
Which is understandable. There's a lot of companies who are making money off the fact that GW are around, and you can't blame people for doing that.
Yeah, definitely.
But there's some cool stuff there. I know I was talking to the Table War guys and shipping their cases. They do those the cases with the magnets, the sheeting, the metal sheets, and the glass fronts, and they're not easy to ship. And at the moment, you can't really get Table War in the EU very well because they haven't got a distributor over here because of everything that's going on. But shipping those to Canada is expensive, so these Canadian guys came down and bought 7 of those boxes. And then as they were walking away, they got another one out to put on display. And he was like, "Oh, you got another one? No, we'll take that as well." Just buying up all their stock while they were down there because it's obviously cheaper for them to ship it the way they are or chuck it in extra luggage or what have you. which is kind of cool. But yeah, there's the vendor halls. It's one of those things. I'm at that point now where unless something jumps out as me as being like, oh wow, that is amazing, I need it, I'm cool. I'm all right. I've got way too much to get on with.
Mind, you know, it would have to be absolutely out of this world for me to part with money.
Yeah, my gaming club, we struggle to get a game of Blood Bowl and Necromunda in, so there's no point me looking at another of these other games. I've got enough. I enjoy the games I play. I think Age of Sigmar, 40k and 30k all bring different things for me. I enjoy the people I play with. I'm happy. Yes, I might be missing out on another brilliant game, but I've got to have people to play against and everything else, and I'm cool. And I've got way more than enough stuff to buy, which is why I didn't queue up at the Forge World stand, Games Workshop / Forge World stand.
Yeah,
it's one of those things. And on reflection, so they had stuff there that was limited to the event. So we had the Lieutenant, Primaris Lieutenant. We had the objective markers that Games Workshop have got out now, the event specials, I believe. I could be wrong exactly how they're selling them. And we had Dice Tray, and there may have been something else, I can't even remember, but there were a handful of items that were limited to events or however they're doing it. So yes, if you want one of them, you have to go and buy it there and then. Fair enough. We were sharing a room with Chris, bless him, Chris Morgan. I think he said to me at one point, I need to go and buy some Forge World. And I'm like, why, dude? And he's like, because like, if you're going to spend money, you can get it free shipping anyway. He's like, I'm at an event. It just feels like I should buy some Forge World. And I think I've seen people like that at the Weekender. I know in America when it used to be more expensive, certainly before the prices dropped and everything else, those queues would be 3 hours long all day, every day, because it was that much cheaper to go and buy stuff there and then. But now, like, if you pre-order it, they can have the stuff sent to you. If you decide you want it, like, and they don't have it, they'll ship it to you for free, and then you don't have to take it home and risk it getting damaged from Adepticon. I know Carl Tuttle did that right at the end. He walked up, oh, book 8 sold out in 5 minutes. Cool, no worries. Well, can I have a book 8, please? Can you send it to my house? Then I don't have to worry about getting it back without damaging it. I don't know. Some people might have been only there for a limited period as well. They might have been only there for 2 days, so they had to queue up on the Saturday. That's fine. But I certainly waited till the end and then walked along and was like, oh, have you got any of these? No, cool. I want one of them and one of them. Got a couple of Primaris Lieutenants and was happy. Well, one for a mate back here and one for me. I certainly wasn't.
The only thing, a lot of people seem really excited about those lieutenants, which I agree, it's a really cool model. But am I right in saying that they're going to sell those at Warhammer Fest in May?
Yeah, probably. And
I just couldn't get over that. There were so many people in the UK messaging me saying, "Oh, if you can you get a Primaris Lieutenant? I really want one."
I think a lot of people.
I was like, just wait a few weeks and get one at Warhammer Fest.
I think a lot of people don't necessarily pay attention to, like, because they'll say, "Oh, I don't know how to get one, so get one for me," kind of thing. So as far as I am aware, they're event only models. So they'll be at any event that GW goes to, and obviously Warhammer Fest, and they might even be available in Warhammer World as some event only models are. Some of it is people want to be the first. People need, like, there's a massive and not even just be the first. For some people, it is being the first to get it up painted. Particularly some people on Instagram and Twitter, like, if I can get mine painted first, it's going to get retweeted and everything else. And then there's a lot of people there who just don't want to wait. We've been bred into this. I think Western society, is very much kind of, we're full on consumerists now, aren't we? And it's like, well, if that's available, I want to buy it and I want it now. And marketing and everything else has helped make us more and more that way. And I think it plays a huge part of it. In fact, I think it would have been cheaper for me to wait till Warhammer Fest to get it, but whatever. It's a few quid. yeah, I actually thought that GW were going to be at Salute, and I thought, oh, I could have got it the week after. But thankfully, GW weren't at Salute, which is an interesting thing. But yeah, there's an element of sometimes I look at the queue and wonder why.
That queue did not seem to go down much at all. The whole period of the convention. I remember walking past it every time thinking, oh, there's no way I'm queuing up in this queue.
And sometimes it moved quick. When it really slowed down was when people wanted Forge World stuff that was out back and they had to go look for it, or they wanted to order stuff and they had to still have to fill out a form. It would be nice if Forge World could work out some electronic way of doing it.
It's true. Yeah, those forms are a pain, actually.
Yeah, and then those forms get brought back to England and then get inputted into the system, and that's when mistakes can happen because inputting that kind of data can cause mistakes, misread things, or what have you. Not that it happens that often, but it seems like an outdated method, and maybe there needs to be an overhaul on their systems, but someone's got to okay that and they've got to plan it or whatever. That slows things down. And I suppose the other thing was I was thinking, because by Sunday afternoon when I rolled up, there was one person in front of me. But actually, if all through the weekend people go, oh, that queue's too long, I'll come back, then that queue will stay a smaller queue but for longer.
Yes.
So, I know that Games Workshop, there was a couple of times when they were shutting the vendor hall and the staff were like, we've got 12 people still in this queue. We are serving these people. We're not sending them away and telling them to queue up tomorrow. So, maybe they need more staff. Maybe they need a bit more space. But then I suppose they're going to look at it and say, well, we sold this much. We managed to do this much. With this much staff, why do we need any more? Because it costs money.
What? You think, well, why spend the money on a bigger plot if you're going to take the same amount of money? I suppose there's a logic there as well, isn't there?
And I think, as I say, some of that mentality of queuing up to get Forge World stuff is like deep set in some of the older gamers, and that I'm at an event, I will buy Forge World. Whereas I think newer people might not have that same hang up because actually I can get it online, and sometimes at conventions their prices aren't, it can be a bit funnier, but it should be better now. They've got their American depot. You shouldn't be paying any extra. So if you're looking at putting in a big Forge World order, you don't need to do it at an event. So that might slowly change. But there was also I actually picked up a book for Michael, because it was available there before it was available in the UK. So we got it a few days earlier than he would have over here, which helps him, write his thing up. So, even then, I walked up to the queue a couple of times and went, nah, that's too long. Okay, I'll come back tomorrow. No, I'll come back. Oh, that's cool. I'll get my stuff now. But, it is what it is. It was quite funny, actually. Yeah, what made me laugh was I'd heard that a couple of vendors, because the queue ended up, rather than going down the walkway, the thoroughfare, and blocking off traders, it went around the back and into the gaming area. And some of the vendors were like, oh, I'm not happy with these people right behind our stall. And my first thought was back to Salute 3 or 4 years ago, before Forge World was pushed to the front and out the way and made sure the queue could go like out of everyone's way. It went down the end of the rows, and the Mercia miniatures were there, and Tim was walking up and down the queue going, have our free rules, have you seen our models? And he was picking models, painted models up and walking them down the Forge World line. And I'm like, that is the way to handle the queue. Like, this bloke has sold models to people who wouldn't look at his stuff, maybe. Don't complain that you've got a captive audience in front of you when you're trying to sell stuff.
No, definitely.
But that made me chuckle. Hey ho. But so I say my Adepticon was, I played a couple of small Heresy events in the Gamesia. Track the thing they do. They have a big map and all the events feed into each other. And it's really well set up. I get a little confused about what's going on, but then I'm only like dipping in and out a bit, to be fair. I know that the terrain for the Heresy room is not Adepticon supplied terrain. As far as I'm aware, Ryan Kimmel brings like half the room, or has bought half the room over previous time, and the Grain Legion bring the other part, and that's why on a Sunday there's no Heresy events, because they're packing up and taking that stuff home with them. But what that means is the level of terrain is at a higher standard than the other rooms, because, you know, frankly, they're being functional in these other rooms. They've got a lot of terrain to make, and although some of it's still very good, it's going to be function over looks, isn't it? In that respect. So you can understand that. They had the small small Adeptus Titanicus events going on just outside the Heresy room. They had big time things going in and out of it as well. That really good. I'd spent a little bit of time in the Age of Sigmar room. That was really cool. It was really nice to see people in there commenting on the terrain and painting in the Heresy room as well. And I know Adepticon is very, even their competitive events, that there seems to be slightly more of an encouragement to have your stuff painted to look good. The team event for 40k is, you know, people go. Seems that more people go there to have this awesome looking armies than to win it, and the displays seem to be, as far as I'm concerned, the displays. I think if you win best display in the team thing, that's better than winning anything else, because they're crazy mental. So
they are cool. I mean, you took me around that area, didn't you? You took me on a little tour.
Yeah, there are pictures online if you want to go and look. There's stories from Vigilus, which is not that old, of orcs attacking an area with this like force field, and they've built the force field and orcs slamming into it and everything else. And then someone else has built like the Mega Gargant, or the asteroid with all the orcs, the Beast Arises style thing with Vulcan in the middle of it. It's so much coolness that you couldn't do in the UK, because no one's got the space to store this stuff, and no one's going to drive it around and deliver it. And people are hiring, you know, trucks to deliver this stuff and driving 10, 12, 15, 18 hours to get this stuff there, because, you know, in England, half the people come on the train because it's the most sensible way for them to do it. So you're not going to fit that stuff on the train with you. But yeah, it was really, I mean, I've talked about Adepticon a lot. I love it. I spent a lot of time hanging out with people in all the rooms and in the bar with other people I've met. I got to go to the podcasters meal that's run by Geek Nation Tours. Terrace very kindly invited me onto that to talk. Basically, we have a meal and we get to talk to people who are on the tour. It was good to see Rob there from England. It was a bit of a surprise. There were even more English people there than I realised were going to be there that I knew, which was a bit crazy. And then we got all the painting as well. And as you say, that painting area is fantastic. Hang out with Kat and Caleb there for a while. Even as a non-painter, I could hang out in that area for a little bit and chat to people. And yeah, that never stops. They even sorted it out this year to have a little party area there a couple of nights. I dread to think how crazy that got. But I was spending my time. It was
very cool. I mean, I must admit, it's one of the things I was so impressed about was that little painting area. In some ways, I thought that, like, you know, Warhammer Fest could do with something like that, somewhere where you could hang out with and do it hobby, and because there's so much of walking around talking to GW staff, but sometimes it's just nice to hang out with fellow hobbyists.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when I was hanging out at that painting area, I thought, you know what, this is really, really cool. You haven't got to constantly try and, like, you know, talk to people about what they're making, etc., etc. It's quite nice to just be able to hang out, do some hobby, and just chat to people, because, you know, you sit down and you always have like two people next to you, so you always, like, you know, lean over and see what they're doing, and they lean over and see what you're doing. So quite a nice way of interacting.
And the crazy thing is there, like, you could be sitting down and you can turn around and you could be talking to someone like Jim Wapple on one side, and then, you know, Caleb on the other side, you know, and that's just a nature of what's been built there as well, that people are comfortable spending that time there alongside, I can sit down and paint at that table, and apart from it, just as long as no one looks at what I'm painting, I don't stand out from these other people, So it's a really cool kind of inviting area. I really like it. We should probably talk a little bit. I don't know. I don't want to get too much into Adepticon is Adepticon. We talked about it. Other people have talked about it. I'm not going to talk about my games or anything like that. I had an amazing time. I want to shout out John Christensen. A massive thank you for letting me borrow your Ultramarines. It meant I didn't have to take any models with me, which is amazing. I borrowed models for Age of Sigmar as well. Had I got my Custodes painted, I would have bought them, but last minute, sending him loads of messages like, what are you using? What can I borrow? He was fantastic for that, and has some really cool Ultramarines as well. And he's used some Halo toys to make these buggies which work as attack bikes, which everyone was stopping me. I was carrying them around. They're like, how'd you make them? Like, are they warthogs? Are they? And I'm like, it was not me. I can't take any credit for this. It's that guy over there. Yeah, absolutely brilliant guy. But I'm not going to get into any of that. We talked. Adepticon's amazing. I love it. It's another one of those things where you just get to go and I hang out. One night I was going to go to bed early at like 10:30, and Zach Paget was like, messaged me just as I was walking past the bar. He was like, I'm in the bar if you want to come and chat. And I was like, turn around. Okay, an hour and a half later, I might go to bed. But it was really good, and the chance to get to talk to people I probably should have talked to more as well. But that's Adepticon.
Yeah, in some ways, the one thing I regret is not talking to more people. And I felt as though I spoke to loads of people, but I would love to have spoken to more.
Yeah, and I think certainly, so this year I went out for a couple of dinners with people I've met but haven't talked to, and I wish I'd spoke to those people 5 years ago, the first time I went, or what have you. Brilliant, lovely guys. In some ways, I'm looking at next year if I go, that I've got even more people to meet up with, and so do I want to do less gaming? But I want to do a little bit of gaming, but just being with the people, being in that environment for 4 days is fantastic. But you went out for another reason as well, didn't you?
Yeah, well, my main reason for going out was to compete in the Crystal Brush. So, it's been a lot of people talk about the Crystal Brush, and especially people in the UK saying that if they don't like something about Golden Demon, they'll very quickly turn to the Crystal Brush, and there's lots of people talk about it, and I've looked at it online. I've never really looked at it in detail, so it was a chance to go over and compete. Yeah, so that's effectively what I did.
So when it started out, it was $10,000 prize. It's gone up and down since. It was $8,000 this time.
8,000 this time, yeah.
And it bills itself as like basically one of the premier painting competitions in the world. I know we talked. You were painting your Dark Eldar, your Eldar piece.
Yes.
For it. And we'd talked about things, and I know at one point one of the comments you said to me was like, well, this painter, whoever it was, I can't remember, was like, I don't know how they do what they do, was one of the comments you made, basically. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing. It was like, I don't know how, okay. like they're blending so smooth. How do they get that so smooth? It was something along those lines.
Yes.
And from my point of view, you said, I'm just going to go out and try, see what I can do. There was no expectation there. Do you feel that was partly because you didn't have enough time, or partly because, or both, partly because you were competing against people who you perceived to be at another level to what you were painting?
Well, to be honest, one of the key things I wanted to go over there and really find out about was obviously understand the competition of who's going over there, but also I felt as though the GW model ranges may not read very well. When you look at, when I went through all the past winners, so all the past categories, you'd see the odd GW model, because let's face it, a lot of it was larger scale stuff. So GW didn't really have anything in that. And then the smaller scale, it was like you might see one or two, maybe three, if you were lucky, entries in the Crystal Brush that had placed, and this is across all the categories, that would be from the GW model range. So I was very much of the mind of, well, this might not go my way, purely off the basis that they maybe don't like the GW models as much in the Crystal Brush competition. So
Sure.
I knew I wanted what I wanted to paint, because I was painting for not only Crystal Brush but for Golden Demon as well. So there was no way I was changing what I wanted to do. So I was of the mind of, well, let's see how it goes. So I didn't go with any too much preconception.
Sure.
But it was very interesting, seeing it from fresh eyes. It was very interesting to see all the different nuances.
These guys, like the names there are names out there that are talked about all the time. Did you have any kind of idea on where you were? Because basically you've painted for GW competitions, haven't you? You haven't really gone outside of that?
Pretty much, yeah. All my stuff has been Golden Demon led.
Andy has a little bit, hasn't he, Andy Wardle? Because he entered as well.
Andy, yeah. Andy's gone for all sorts. He's gone for lots of different competitions.
Has Richard Gray? He's mainly GW?
Not really. As far as I know, the only other thing he's gone to is salutes.
Sure,
I don't think he's done anything other than that.
Cool. And so that's interesting. I felt, I don't know if it's true, I felt there was a little bit from you as, I know how good I am over here in this environment. How good am I over there? Is that fair?
And that was very much,
cool.
That's probably a fair account of it, because from Instagram, you can look at insights into your feed, and you can look at who likes your work and where they're based in the world, and at what times people like your stuff. All this data you can look at, and obviously then you can look at my feed, and I can see that the majority of people that like my work are based in the UK.
Right, yeah.
And that may be because the way Instagram, how they show, they think, well, this person's based in the UK, so we'll mainly show it to UK people because they'll understand it more. So I don't think I've got a massive US following of people. So I very much was of the mind that, that people that maybe like my work aren't really US based. So let's see how this pans out. Really, let's see how it all goes. So there was a lot of that as well, of thinking, how will it read over there? Will people like it? Will they not like it? And I noticed that in the hobby area.
Sure.
When I sat down to do some painting, I looked around and I couldn't really see anyone really doing any GW sort of painting. It was all sort of, weird and wonderful busts and large models and all this sort of stuff, which was all really cool. But I thought, well, I didn't get a lot of attention for sitting down and painting what I was painting. I think it may have almost been like, oh, well, that guy's just painting a bit of GW stuff. It could be for an army, I suppose. Yeah. Maybe almost that's maybe the sort of the way they look at it.
Sure.
So it was interesting to sort of try and gauge how it was all going to pan out. So obviously the competition itself was a lot smaller than I envisaged. I from going to Demons, especially at Fest, you have banks and banks of cabinets. Two cabinets per category. You've got the 12, 13 categories. So you've got like loads and loads of cabinets. And there were these 5 ramshackled cabinets in the corner of the vendor hall that were that looked as seemed they'd seen better days. And that was where everything got lumped into. So there was no, this category goes in this cabinet. It was just like you entered your stuff. It got put in the nearest available slot in the cabinet. So you could be you could have a tiny single miniature next to a massive diorama, or a massive monster or vehicle. There was no sort of ways of sort of. I think they segregated them out as they sorted through the finalists, but there was not a clear, distinct. This cabinet has all the single entries in. This cabinet has all the dioramas in.
So 5 years when I went. Hold on, 5 years when I went. There were. Well, certainly seemed to me a lot more entries, and that was it was newer back then. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 years old back then. So there was certainly a lot newer. in the old hotel, they were in a corridor outside the Age of Sigmar, so you had to kind of go and find it. I think one of the few things, so they have to be somewhere to be locked up is one of the main issues, because they're not going to leave them in a hotel where anyone can walk around. So they kind of have to put it in the vendor hall, which is the only place that's locked up at a reasonable time, where they don't need any security there. And they also need it somewhere people can find it as well. So you're kind of stuck in that place of where you have it. You can't really... I don't think they can have it anywhere else, which is not ideal. But it is what it is. And at the end of the day, the votes are done online. So we should talk about that as well. It's part judge voted, part online voted through Cool Minion. Not. I always thought it was a 50-50 vote. We'll go into more of this at some point. But you could register for Cool Minion or not, and then all the entries would be there, and you'd rate them out of 10. And that would be some weight of the result of who won the event. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So
correct. Yeah. So the idea, the way I was explained, the way I think it's explained on their website, is that it will be a 50-50 vote. The judges will give 50% of the marks, and so will the online portion of the votes.
I think it's certainly kind of written to kind of so you can look at it that way. It's not very obvious that it's another way.
Yes. However, speaking to a few people and getting a bit of sort of inside knowledge, because obviously this was a competition that I'd never entered before, so I was trying to glean a bit of information. It happens that obviously they've had some issues in the past with online voting. Surprise, surprise. And my fears of obviously online voting being flawed to the degree that it can easily be broken by certain individuals. Meant that the judging side apparently the judges do have an ability to go back and then adjust the online vote if they feel it's been skewed one way or another. That could be that they do have people checking apparently that there's not a big influx, say, of loads of votes all coming from one IP address, that there's not shenanigans going on. And also I think that they look at things like to try and take out maybe where a piece has been deliberately voted down, to try and balance that out.
Yeah, absolutely. The problem with that is there's no, and the problem is there's a big money prize here, and it's viewed as a competition, a leading competition, and everything else. And so, as a punter, as it were, I would expect certain things to be done and to be fair and to be even. When I see online vote, part of me thinks, and part I see, from day one, I understand the flaws of online voting and taking photos of stuff and everything else, but to have the ability to go in and change results is not something that I considered. I think that's something that I just assumed they'd accepted the fact that there are going to be the odd erroneous result where something's happened. But, it kind of... that was my maybe naive view of things. The other thing is those photos of the miniatures that have been put online. Now, it's certainly changed over the years. And to be honest, the last 2-3 years, I haven't really paid much attention to Crystal Brush. But this year, obviously, a bit more of a vested interest. And you guys were very keen on looking at it. The photos that appear online are not the models that are put into the cabinet.
That is very true, yes.
Yeah. And we'll say this, Andy said it about his own miniature. So if we take Andy's Imperial Fist, was it? Dawn, yes. Yeah, well, he said something about they've smoothed out the
roughness.
Yeah. So he kind of fist pumped when he saw his photo, because his photo looked better in that picture. His model looked better than it did in real life, and to a good level, something where he's going to sit there and go, yes, I know that bit was rough, but actually it looks fine on that photo.
Yes. If in case in point, so obviously I had 2 entries in there. When the photos went up, we wait ages for the photos to go up, which is another weird delay that we had. The photos went up, and I'm obviously searching, let's have a look at what's on there and have a look at our own models. And we were like, yeah, it looks amazing. And I was looking at mine going, it looks great. You know, they're really vibrant, it looks really nice, really well taken photo. But I knew that the photos were improved upon than my models were. The colours were so much more vibrant than they were in real life. Everything was super smooth. You know, it was for intents and purposes very photoshopped is the way sort of we looked at it. And when we sort of, my entries, I've spent 200, 400 hours painting them under a day like that. I know exactly what my models look like. I know exactly what the colours I've used to make those blends. And then when I look at a photo and go, wow, it looks amazing, I'm looking at it thinking it looks amazing. But when I think back and re-examine it, I know that, like, say, the yellows on the Imperial Fist shoulder pads were way yellower than I painted them.
Yeah.
And the white armour was so white, and I was like, wow, it looks amazing. And I know that the armour is a little bit greyer than that, because that's how I tried to get the gradients to work, by going for a greyer colour, then I could edge highlight with a brighter white. So when it came out really white, I know that they've pushed the contrast of those photos to show them in their best light. And that's not you could say that maybe a lot of people do this on Instagram and other mediums, but when it's not a true representation of the model, and that there may be mistakes are glazed over or are hidden by this, that you then think, well, actually, what are people voting for online? You know, they don't actually know the truthness of it all. Well, and that's a little bit upsetting, really.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily something that's how do you say this? It's not necessarily a mega bad thing that they do that, because they do that to all the pictures. However,
they do it to everyone. It's not like they're doing it only to a set people.
Absolutely.
Yes.
However, and this is where you play the system, and we'll go into other reasons why this style of painting works, but knowing that your photo is going to be photoed that way, like you're known for your technical painting when it comes to non-metallic metals, things like that, of technically being very, very good.
Yes.
That's how you won your trophies. You're going to receive less benefit from that process than someone who is less technically, or is painting to a lesser technical standard.
Yes, completely that. If I pride myself on having as high a technical ability as I could, that's my pinnacle, is making everything technically very good, so that there are no mistakes on it, the blends are smooth. All the fine detail is really, really tiny, so that if you really look at it, and even if you take a photo and zoom into it, you don't see brush marks and errors, even to the stage where, when I was painting the head on the Dark Elder guy, I decided, when you put the little lines on the lip, so you got that sort of texture. I did that on the Dark Elder guy. Now, I physically couldn't see those with my naked eye. So when I was painting it, I was taking the absolute tip of the brush and just trying to think where the lip was, and very, very slightly moving my fingers just to ever so slightly flick the edge of the lip. And when I looked at it, I couldn't see anything. But when I took a photo and zoomed in, I could then see the lines on the lip.
Yeah.
So it was even to that degree where I actually sometimes physically can't see what I'm doing, but I'm actually trying to create that effect.
Sure.
So I'm really going for it as hard as I can on a technical side, so that if you're less technical, but that gets glazed over, that gets sort of, fudged by the photos, that, you think, well, that plays into their hands a lot more than it does mine.
Yeah, and so what it does is, if you were to enter next year, you don't need to paint to that same level, so you can concentrate on other things. And you know what? That's the system they use. People played that aspect of the system. That's fair enough. That's something that happens. If they came and went into a GW competition, they'd have to learn those rules and all the little bits, and that's that's by the by. That's what happens. Can't blame them for doing that. additionally, on top of that, we've got a set of judges voting. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, I wasn't aware when we were told that. So I can't remember who the names of the judges, but at least 2 of them have a hashtag on Instagram, which the parental guidance version is screw perfection or something like that.
F smoothness.
F smoothness, that's the one. So they have this idea that it's about getting paint on a model, pushing contrasts, and not being technically perfect. And that's cool.
Correct.
Again, right? You know, everyone's got a different art style. I'm not criticizing that whatsoever. But that, again, when you've got a system where that combined with those photos means that the judges are not necessarily looking for technical ability. They're looking for pushing contrast and things like that, and light and color and everything else. But maybe people are judging it differently online. Again, that's something that if you're very aware of that, you can play to big time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you know that the judge is going to be someone that is of that mindset, where they don't care about how smooth or how well something's finished, then push the contrast element of it, push the transitions really, really hard, so that you don't have to worry so much about the technical ability, but you'll tick other boxes. And that was one of my reasons for going, because obviously I didn't quite know how a lot of these elements would pan out.
Sure. Yeah, and so we've got all that combined in this competition. I know this year they made a statement about one of the people's entries in the final categories was someone who worked for them. One of the judges. They worked for one of the judges.
The Ruben, the guy that got silver overall, worked for one of the judges.
Yeah, and that's been a fairly common occurrence for Crystal Brush, apparently, down the back history. And this year they made a point. They may have done it in previous years that that judge wasn't judging their model. Cool. I know it gets a bit difficult. Either way on that one, if you allow these people in, then fine. I suppose that's the way you've got to deal with it. Not necessarily got a major issue with that, but it's another thing I think that's added on. But it all comes to having this very different paint competition than a Golden Demon particularly.
Yeah, and you know what, though? That's not so much a bad thing, because, you don't want every paint competition to be set by the same parameters. So, if there's a paint competition and it is less technical and it's more about the art of the piece and the composition and the colour choices, then fair play. That if you're entering that competition and that's how it's going to play out, then you paint to that style to win. So that's very much what I felt. The winners overall. That's how they'd attacked that piece. I mean, if we go into the big mould line on the gold winning piece,
yes,
that was a massive point of contention for us UK painters, because we were like, blimey, if you put a piece into a demon with a mould line on, you'd literally get side tabled within seconds, because if they spot a mould line, it's like a cardinal sin of painting. So they would say, no, we're not having that, and it would get pushed on side. So the fact that the overall winning piece had this massive mould line on it on the wings sort of says a lot about how they judged that competition. And the fact that obviously the online photos didn't really show that mould line up meant that obviously a lot of people wouldn't have known to look at that, and clearly the judges don't consider that to be an issue. So that means that that you can get away with that sort of stuff. So
yeah,
I know that in a UK demon you would not get away with that.
And as a non-painter, part of me is like, really, I didn't look. You guys pointed out before it had won and said this model's got this big mould line down it, and I'm like, really? I mean, surely cleaning up your model so you're painting the right thing. Personally, for me, that's a line, I suppose, that shouldn't be crossed. in when you're talking about top level painting. But, again, what can you do? I suppose, it's their competition, it's their rules. They decide how they want to do it.
That's pretty much it. It's their competition. And if they say that, no, that's fine, that's all well and good, then you have to accept that. I mean, for me, there's nothing I find more frustrating is that when I'm painting a piece and as I go to do some blends on a piece, I suddenly find a mould line somewhere and I will just scrape all of that off with a knife and start again. There's no two ways about it. But clearly that's not so much an issue in other competitions. So, I mean, I'd be very interested to see how that pans out in other competitions, even around, around Europe.
Well, I think
some of the other ones that happen.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, so anyway, I could start a painting competition tomorrow if I wanted to, and if I had the money, I could offer £20,000 as a prize. That doesn't give the competition any credibility. Not that I'm saying that Crystal Brush doesn't have any credibility. That's not what I'm saying. But anyone can set up a painting competition. I think maybe that money, the prize attached to it, has been something that's raised Crystal Brush in the views of people who haven't been there and seen it. And we talked to Caleb, and I was going to try and organise getting Caleb online. He was quite free to talk about Crystal Brush, and maybe we'll get him on at some point. He turned around to me, but second night, I think, and he said, when you guys came in and showed him your models, he knew Richard wasn't going to place because it was a really dark scheme, GW model, technically good, but didn't, everything was within a palette and everything else. So actually it doesn't matter what he did with his model. He didn't hit what he knew those judges would want to see. So automatically he's not going to do anything. And yet you and Andy were talking, well, Richard's got the best model of the three of us, so he's got a chance. And then, out of the three of you, Andy wins the gold for his Dawn. That's correct, isn't it? You won the silver?
Yep, I won the silver.
Yeah.
And the conversations we had was that Dawn would be lucky if he got a bronze. I should get gold for my Dark Elder guy. And, and of course, our theory behind it, again, we looked very technically. We spoke about Andy's rough blends and all this, that, and the other. And it was almost a shock that when he got gold. I was like, because whereas I got silver, I remember walking up to get the prize and thinking, oh, damn it, missed out on gold. And I walked up and got silver. So then they were very quick on the trigger when it came to putting up the photos of who had won the next one. So as I walked up, shook Cat Martin's hand, as I turned round to walk back to my chair, obviously they put up Andy's one.
Yeah.
So as I'm walking back, Andy stood up, and I thought, what? And I looked around and went, oh my God, Andy got gold. And it was almost like a shock, because it was like we weren't prepared for it.
Yeah.
We sort of, as all painters do, we put in our head where we thought that all the pieces would come, who would win gold, silver, bronze on each category.
Sure.
So, it was, we were shocked more than anyone, really, at the when it first happened.
So within all that, you've got this painting competition, which has these parameters that, are set by the judges. And you're right that the winners tend to be these purposefully sculpted models that you can't go and purchase anywhere. And there's there was a hoo-ha about that amongst the community. How much does that play a part in it, and what have you? Fine, whatever. It's competition. I've heard stories that go beyond that. I don't necessarily think we should talk about those stories, because I'm not the person who understands, was there, or anything like that. And I'm sure there are stories everywhere. Let's not get this wrong. Talking to Caleb, people were annoyed at GW when they used to run Golden Demon in America, all right? And there were some issues with that. And we have to accept that when humans are judging things, there are prejudices in our judging. No competition is ever completely objective. It cannot be, because humans are involved, and that's fine. That's cool. I think there is a, as far as I can tell, there's still in that American painting community, there's a bit of a backlash against GW still. They don't particularly they haven't forgiven them for like taking away Golden Demons or for judging them the way they did, or whatever the reasons are. There is still a bit of a kind of a GW thing, and I think that's reflected, as you said. There's not many GW models in that competition, and it's open to other things, but you would expect there to be, particularly with the stuff GW are putting out now, Forge World are putting out now. Don't get me wrong, there's some companies making some beautiful models, but Forge World and GW are up there with their beautiful models. Yeah, so
Yeah,
I think you would expect a few more in there. So there's that aspect of things as well. But whatever, that's the competition. Congrats on getting your silver, and to Andy for his gold, and commiserations for Richard. I know your views coming back from it have changed, and we'll talk about that a little bit. I think the biggest problem for me is the representation online of these models. When I got back, even before we got back, Facebook groups, 40k Facebook groups, oh my God, this model's amazing. Oh my God, how can I ever paint like this? And one of the prime examples was the model that finished second overall. Is it Ulrich the Slayer?
Yeah, the Space Wolf guy.
Yeah, Ulrich the Slayer. Custom made piece. The photo on Cool Mini of Not was stunning. I've taken a photo, I put it up on my Twitter, a comparison photo for one of the photos thing, and you guys had come back to me, and the difference between the two photos is mind-boggling. Just on a colour difference, it's like one's a 1950s comic book, like a Dandy or a Beano, like where it's all dull, all the reds are dull and all that because of the way they had inks and the expense of doing it. And then one's a modern computer generated comic where everything is vibrant and bright and strong. And I'm like, okay, so the colours are completely different on this. But then not only that, the cloak on the photo looks as smooth as a baby's bum. And on the model, and I know some people have made claims that maybe it was a purposeful design for shadows and things like that. Either way, there were definite lines in the changing of colour. So the blending was staggered, as it were, the way I would paint.
Yes, yeah. I've heard a lot of people say that obviously there's forced shadows on a lot of his work and stuff like that, where he paints on the shadows so that you can, you've got them on there. But obviously that creates a thing where if you've got a smooth blend, you can see a big line, it sort of throws you off a bit. So.
Yeah, and sure. Someone else said to me, if there were forced shadows on the cloak, if that's what they're supposed to be, there should be others on the model. Whatever. Even if those forced shadows are purposeful, that photo doesn't show any forced shadows at all. That shows a blended cloak that is like smooth, as say, like the gradations on it are so smooth as you go around it. Whereas on the actual model, yes, you're in harsh lighting of the thing. It doesn't change the model that much. There were, as say, 4 or 5 definitive layers of coloured paint of different shades.
There's also, not to mention the other fact that where people look at these pieces online, and especially with the larger pieces, they see a photo on their computer and it's effectively zoomed out.
Yes.
And then they go, wow, look at this piece, not realising how big that piece actually is. And then when they look at a different category, hence my category, the single category, those pictures are zoomed in.
Yeah.
Because they're smaller pieces. And that has a massive effect on how you can view a piece online. Because if you're comparing the two, say if you put Ulrich the Slayer against all of the single categories, you can go, but look how detailed this model is, and look how absolutely vibrant it looks. But then if you zoom a lot of pictures out there, you get that effect with a lot of things. So that was another thing of mine, that you can tell that the bigger pieces often win the big prizes because people aren't seeing the true scale of the piece on that online voting. There's a huge advantage to picking a big model. Yes,
on
massive.
the online voting side of things, and that's before you even get into, say, blocks of a country voting someone down and all that other jazz. What my biggest issue is not actually because I'm not entering this competition. It annoyed me, I must admit, and you guys were annoyed, in that it's what they're putting online is false. I think there's possibly the fact Cool Mini or not are running this competition. They've got to recoup money from it. Everyone who goes and votes online, that's a click on a page. So they're going to be getting advertising revenue, I can only assume. That's a lot of people voting, a lot of people looking at their models. All right, it's going to, they've got to get that prize money back somewhere, haven't they? Cool.
Definitely,
Fair enough, whatever. So, if you're going to have people, you're not going to want to put pictures up of models that aren't of the standard people expect them to be. So I wonder if there's an aspect there, partly an aspect of we want to make these models look as cool as possible. Part of it, no, these are going on our website. They've got to look cool as well. Maybe not.
I think that was my biggest thing that I took from it, that, they want every model to look its absolute best, because ultimately they don't want to show the competition in a bad light and say, everyone go on there and go, these entries are rubbish.
Yeah.
It's got to, they want to keep it as the premium.
And that doesn't bother me. That aspect of it doesn't bother me. What bothers me is, I say, when I'm online, and the Independent Characters Facebook page was one of the highlights for me of where I saw this. People say, "Oh my God, that's unbelievable! I can't believe it's fine if that's inspiring someone. That's inspired me to go and paint." But some people literally were saying things like, "Oh well, there's no point because that is unattainable. That level of painting is unobtainable." And I've replied to a few of them. Yes, it is unobtainable because it wasn't obtained. Right, and that's where it becomes a negative for me, big time. Is people are looking at that, and I felt so. First day out there, when you put your stuff in, you looked around, you came back to me and went, I think I've got a chance here of winning something. And it was almost like I felt, and this could be wrong. I felt you'd gone out there and gone, you know what, the guys I've looked up at, I'm as good, if not better, at this than they are. And
I very much thought that when I came back from looking at their stuff in hands. I remember thinking, oh, so it's not a mystical art then, eh? Oh, okay.
Exactly. and for all that we, this, I like to hope that this podcast has a message that anyone should be playing, anyone should be painting, do what you want, enjoy your hobby, encourage people to play. Let's not do things, let's not gatekeep, let's not set expectations so high that people are forced away. Encourage people in. Seeing those pictures has put some people off trying to paint to the level they want to paint at. And that is anti everything that competition should be. And that's only because of the way they've taken the pictures. That's not I talked to someone, I put the photos up on one of the feeds and went through, and they're like, this person can still paint. I'm like, don't get me wrong, that Ulrich the Slayer, right? I could sit here and paint for years and years and years and never be able to paint as well as that person can. Right? At no point am I ever going to question that person's talent. What I'm saying is that photo you saw is not representative of what they painted, and arguably, in fact, possibly not arguably, that photo is not achievable by any human hand. And when you're judging yourself against that photo, that's not a healthy judgment to make. When you look at real life, we spend, magazine photos, body image, women photoshopping. How many times do you hear people saying, don't compare yourself to that picture of insert supermodel here because they've been airbrushed, right? That photo is not real. And yet, and we're trying to make, and it's essentially the same concept. Like, don't judge yourself to those things. Much that. Yeah, and I think that is the most disappointing thing I've come away from it, and it's left amongst other stories and everything else, and not really personally, I don't appreciate when I think of paint competition. I think if you're gonna, you almost need to set out what you expect. Possibly, I think Golden Demon to a point is quite good at saying things like if it doesn't fit within 40k, like the themes of 40k, you have to fit within the themes of 40k. Like that monster Night Titan that's jumping around and stuff that wouldn't place in Golden Demon, quite rightly, in my opinion, because it doesn't fit the themes of 40k. But you know that before you go in.
Yes.
I think Golden Demon is pretty good at, like, this is a painting competition for this, and yes, the judges are going to have their favourite styles and everything else, and that probably will influence their vote. But at least you know going in roughly what's expected. Whereas, frankly, with Crystal Brush, if you're new, if you've been in it a few years, you might work it out. But if they change judges and all 3 judges have a different style of paint next year, then they'll be looking for different things. Like and wildly different.
And that
things.
would be very hard to sort of if suddenly it's all the judges become very technical.
Yeah.
You'd be a bit annoyed if that's not how you've done your entry.
Yeah, so it's that's a small bugbear for me, and Crystal Brush has lost some of its shine based on the way they run it, based on the fact that judges can alter scores and a number of other things. Lost that shine. I don't hold it in the esteem that I used to. I still appreciate the skill and talent of all those people that won. Don't get me wrong, but. Again, I don't look at it the way I used to. I know you don't look at it. Richard and Andy don't look at it the way they used to. In fact, I did ask Richard if he had any kind of things to say at a salute when I saw him, and he just kind of laughed and shrugged his shoulders. Because it's easy. We all have these people we look up to, and have you been looking up to someone who can't do what they... It's like looking up to Lance Armstrong as a cyclist.
Yeah,
it is. It's like, Lance Armstrong's my hero. He did this and he's amazing. Right, well, actually, as a human being, he still is pretty amazing. But what he achieved wasn't achievable without the use of something else to help. So you'd never be able to do what Lance Armstrong could do. It's that kind of thing. I think it's a big shame. But for me, I know we talked coming home and stuff. For me, the biggest thing, if I'd gone out there and entered like you have, is to come home going, you know what? I went where supposedly some of the world's best are. I can compete.
Yes. I mean, the fact I came away with the silver, I was very happy with
fantastic,
that.
Yeah.
And if anyone came to me and said, Golden Demons are but Crystal Brush is a better competition, I feel good to the fact that I probably know more about it than they do. And I've placed, so I can't say it's sour grapes if I turn around and say, well, actually, I think Golden Demon's a better competition because I've placed at Crystal Brush. So it's not as though it's one of those sort of, wow, it's a rubbish competition because I didn't win.
And I think for Richard and Andy as well, and and others who they'll talk to, that'll be the same kind of thing. Like, there is no, if you can compete at Golden Demon, you should be able to compete at most painting competitions around the world, unless David Soper turns up. So,
it's funny. I was thinking about this the other day. I don't think he's been to any other competitions, has he, other than a Golden Demon?
I don't know, to be fair, but
which I think is quite funny.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Are you going to look at doing any other painting events in other places?
Yes, I'm going to try and get to a few other things. Hopefully. Try and go to some more European events.
Yeah.
I like to go to SMC. I'd like to go to Monty. So I'm going to try and get out and about. But I'm going to take it fairly easy and laid back. I'm not going to go crazy, hell for leather. Right, got to go do this. It's the be all and end all. I'm going to take it fairly easy and see where it takes me.
Yeah, that's cool. And it'd be interesting to see how they kind of mark up. I don't think either of us think Golden Demon's perfect. And we're not going to say that, but it's good to know. It's good to know what's going on, basically. Yeah. I think we've probably done that one to death now, but interesting. Congrats on the silver and getting the piece over and back in one piece. That's always always a good thing.
I must say, I got more attention from my clear carry case than my models did.
Absolutely.
Walking around Adepticon, people would walk up to me and go, "Wow, that's amazing," and I go, "Oh, thanks," and I'd hold up the carry case, and they go, "Did you make that yourself?" I go, "Yeah, I did. Yeah, it's converted. I made the base." Oh, so how did you get the clear plastic? And I go, "Oh, you're talking about the case. I'm talking about the model."
Bless. Awesome. Okay, well, we'll leave that there. If and people can feedback to us if they want and criticise us if they want. That's fine. But we'll take a break and we'll come and talk to Freddie. Well, joining me once again, we have Freddie the Swede. Hi, Freddie.
Hello, mate.
How you doing? I'm good, thank you. You?
Yeah, can't complain.
Excellent. And for those who might not be aware, you can plug your show here if you wish.
Oh, I can.
Indeed. Well, I should say it's not so safe for work.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
It's the Show Heresy podcast. But you can take some credit yourself because I remember being back on your show. What was it, like 2015?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was ages ago. It was after Ken Loll talked to me about the Swedish heresy scene or something.
Absolutely, yeah. And you've been involved with Varangian's going for a while now, and you're involved with the scene over in Sweden.
Yeah. So, well, what we've done in Sweden, we kind of all the different, because we have the kind of major communities in southern Sweden, middle Sweden, northern Sweden, and what would you say, like not southern Sweden, but in between southern and Sweden is kind of like the UK. It's most people live, south and kind of like in the mid belt, and then in the north is super sparse. Yeah. So it's kind of like after you go from like, I don't know, Manchester and up, then it's very sparse, unless you're Scottish. Sorry if I offended you.
Is it grim? Is it grim up north in Sweden as well? Does it get grimmer? Yeah. Okay.
It's like super grim. I think 8 months of the year it's perpetual darkness, and then there's like 4 months where the sun never sets.
I thought we can both offend our northern compatriots from each country there. So Freddie's involved with all that, and anyone who listens to any other podcast will have heard of you, but it's always good just to remind people, and the people who may not have heard of you. But we've got you, indeed, we've got you on because you also do something else, which is the annual. Well, it's become an annual thing, hasn't it? The annual fundraiser, Heresy Against DMD. Do you want to give a bit of a backstory there, quickly?
The long story short is that I have 2 boys. My oldest son, he has been diagnosed with DMD then, and he got diagnosed way back in 2011. So I always try to kind of increase the awareness of the illness and so on. And then I'm no research scientist or a doctor, so I was thinking, what can I do to try and help, do my part for this? And one of the things that we did, or the brainchild even before I joined the podcast, was to try to organize some sort of charity raffle where we kind of raise money for research. Because most unfortunately it is these days that most of the medication and stuff comes from private funding. Yeah. So you kind of rely lots on kind of charities and government grants and so on. So I kind of decided, I think it was like 2016 the first time. I can't remember. It was 3 years ago. Yeah, it should be 2016. That I was going to do some sort of charity raffle, and the first time we raffled off a warlord, and we kind of got that ball going, and then it became like an annual thing. And then when I started with the podcast and the kind of organizing events and so on, it just became a national thing. And before I had a podcast, I asked everyone to chip in that had podcasts. Yeah. And obviously everyone passed the word around, and now it's grown into bigger. So it's not like a Varangian heresy, or it's kind of become the heresy community sort of thing, because people are shouting it out left, right, and center, and people are trying to promote it further. People are holding events to help, like this. So they do like heresy events against DMD, and then they take whatever, everyone pays $5 or £5 to, and that goes into the charity. And so it's grown into a such more larger thing than my initial idea was. Just trying to raise a little bit of, a few $1,000, and I would be happy. But now I think we're up. Last time I checked, it was like $32,000 or something.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, absolutely right. The heresy community kind of adopted it as our charity of choice, and there are other people doing other charity things, but this is the one that gets a lot of attention, and that's cool. At the end of the day, there are a lot of good charities out there.
I know.
Doing a lot of good work.
I know heaps of charities. I try to support most of them. I know. Was it like the Eye of Horus do the Soldier On, and I know the guys in America, they do that one for the toddlers. Yeah,
Toys for Tots.
Yeah, Toys for Tots.
Yeah, and there's Doctors Without Borders, and then Nova Open are a charitable event themselves, but there's lots and lots and lots of good stuff going on. But it's
which I think is it's so cool to see, because I can't really see that in historical wargaming, which I kind of have a history in. I've seen that there's a lot of community, like with the veteran community, where they kind of do like ANZAC Cup and stuff like that, just to get money for the veteran community. But if you compare it to other kind of sci-fi fantasy games, I think that the heresy community is kind of leading the benchmark by doing so many charities and trying to do something better than just play with toy soldiers. That makes sense.
I think it does really well. I would say that there are people out there who've been doing I can't remember what it's called now, Food Hammer, and there was a privately pressed version of that. So and certainly the Doctors Without Borders and Toys for Tots have been running a while. The board gaming one that what's it called, where they game in November, game for a day. Can't remember what it's called now. It's like 24-hour gaming. But yeah, this one's there's certainly people have jumped on and embraced this one within the heresy community, which is good to see.
It's good. It's one of those. I think compared to most of other charities, like because of DMD, the illness, it's not very well known. I know that in the UK it was it got really pushed. I think it was like a year or 2 years ago, because of they were going to cancel some government funding for some medication. So it got really big in the UK media, and I was following that with an interest because I have the same issue in Sweden about that medication that you guys actually get now. So that's awesome. So it's good to see that more and more people are actually realizing that there is, the Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, and that's a thing. So that was one of my first goals, is to make people aware that, man, this is a thing that happens to little boys, and it's really bad, and something should be done about it. And then now it's kind of exploded into this sort of everyone is doing their part, and it's just fun, and a good excuse to go gaming because you raise some extra money for charity. So that's amazing.
Absolutely. And we have the telethons and everything else, the live broadcasting that the Radio Free Fan guys and what's the other one called when they're on the YouTube channel? My mind's gone blank. But
TFL.
TFL, that's the one. Yeah, so they've done that aspect of it. But I think a lot of the real heroes are the people who do the painting up armies. And over the years, you've had different people doing different things.
Yep.
Do we want to talk about... So essentially what you do is a raffle, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. The main thing is we usually raffle something off. Last year we did a Titan Maniple. The year before that we did 3 Night Houses. And this year we kind of... We realized it would be hard to make it bigger.
Yeah.
But we also want to make a broader range of prices available. So I've been talking a little bit to most of the guys that have done like the Cult of Paint courses and so on, and I've talked to Henry at Cult of Paint, and we kind of decided like, well, something that would be really cool and more useful than just here have a warlord is just do like a full army painted. So this year we're doing 3 2,500 points armies. One is going to be the Ultra Smurfs or Ultramarines, painted by Björn Halvason, who recently came home with Best Painted award from Adepticon. So once again, like I don't need him to come to any more events because he can't win any more Best Painted. That's enough. Doesn't matter where you go, he just wins them. Ridiculous. The other guy we have, he's painting a Dark Mechanicum Force. It's based on a Myrmidon sect. He's already sent me the fluff that he's thinking about doing. It's Linus Lekmet. And he has also heaps of fucking trophies from Best Painted. And then the final entrance in painting something is me. Because I thought that, I always try to ship something in each year. And apparently I do have some prizes. I didn't even know I won those 2 prizes at the Horus Heresy Weekender until the staff told me because I had to leave early.
Tell us that. So what did you win at the Horus Heresy Weekender?
I won. Well, I didn't win. I came second for the dual scene, and I came third for a single miniature.
Excellent.
So it wasn't. Oh, sorry. I didn't win. So I haven't won anything that is not World War II related. So I have Best Painted in historical wargamings, but I don't think I won a Best Painted in Horus Heresy ever. But that's mostly because I tend to run events.
True. That's my excuse as well. It's not that I'm not that very good at painting, but I did.
And I forgot to tell you what I'm painting.
Yeah, what are you painting?
I'm actually digging up because everyone that listens to our podcast or have heard the rumor about my kind of Doctor Who attic, the time travel back into the 80s when it comes to Games Workshop. What I'm doing is way back when there was called something Imperial Armor Volume 5 came out.
Yeah.
And 6 and 7. That has something to do with Siege of Vrax.
Yeah, the 3 fantastic books.
They're so good. I'm touching them now. I just need to. I decided in my madness that I was going to do the cult parts of the army.
Yeah.
And I bought everything.
Sure.
And then because I am a scatterbrain, and I decided no, I'm not going to do the cult part. I'm going to do the Kriegs because that's so cool.
They are very cool.
And then I bought all of them. And then I said, no, wait, I'm not going to do the Kriegs. Actually, I'm going back to basic. I'm going to start doing Dark Angels again because they just released that new spruce. Like they re-released the Dark Angels back in, that must have been 5th edition or 6th. When they released those, it was like a Battle Force Raving, and they started having plastic robe Dark Angels.
Yeah, super cool ones.
So obviously I have all this Forge World resin that I've never used. The Krieg ones I bribed Linus with to get some more others to get a Chaos Reaver Titan. And so now I have a Chaos Reaver Titan, and I have all my Rex Cult and Militia. And I also thought, well, I would never ever get an excuse to paint all this. And I always wanted to paint this, like since way back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a Militia Force with a Reaver Titan, a Chaos Reaver Titan, because I always wanted to paint a Chaos Reaver Titan. But I have no use for a Chaos Reaver Titan. So I wanted to do something like a Cult of Militia where they worship the Reaver Titan as their kind of god.
Cool.
And that's the Lord of War choice, obviously. And then it's the gorgeous, super cool Rax Militia.
Excellent.
Within forces and the command squad, I have everything. Like, I'm sorry, I'm a hoarder.
Yeah, for people who are newer to the hobby, that was the books these are the books Forge World used to put out before they just started Heresy, and Siege of Vrax really turned it up a volume before Bad Ab War came
out.
And
they introduced the old marks of armor as well.
Yeah,
like Bad Ab War and the Siege of Rex. It's so good. And Alan Bly was on there.
Yep.
It's mentioned in the 4 parts, like he was co-author of.
Yeah, I think it was Alan who drew. I could be wrong, but I believe Alan turned them, because beforehand they were more a collection of new toys to play with, and then suddenly they got a narrative, a broad narrative, and Siege of Rax is big, and so is Bad Ab War, and it was those two which.
I can credits written by Warwick Kinraid, and then it says additional background and info, Alan Bly.
Yeah, there we go.
So he was in charge of the background.
Yeah, and then the Bad Ab War that came after that was, from what I understand, and I could be slightly wrong here, is basically made them kind of think, yes, we could do something with Heresy. From that,
Bad Ab War is so good.
Yeah, Bad Ab War's fantastic. So yeah, you're going back a little bit because I'm sure there are plenty of people here who have no idea about Siege of Rax.
If you don't like that, they cost a fortune on eBay.
Yeah,
but the fluff, even me that hardly plays any 40k anymore, but Jesus, like the fluff, it's so like I can read them again and again. Like I reread them once a year.
Yeah, it's one of those things where Forge World, they probably don't think it's worth their time, but they could go and digitize that and just put them out as background almost.
Yeah. Well, basically, what they could do is you sell the backgrounds, and then you can add, because they're all into 8th edition now, they could add the 8th edition rules to it. Absolutely.
But we'll see. I mean, maybe that's something people need to ask for, because they are really cool resources. Yeah. Really cool. So we got 3 armies, 3 fully painted 2,500 point Heresy armies.
Yeah, but that's not all.
I was about to say, I'm sure that's not all. Carry on.
No, and then Henry Seal from Cult of Paint, he did one of the Titan maniples for the release of Adeptus Titanicus.
Cool.
So the one that he painted up, that actually is in some of the books and stuff, that has been used as one of the pro-painted ones. He's going to raffle, that's going to be included in the raffle as one of the prizes. His entire Titan maniple.
Excellent.
Then we got as limited edition of the Solar War, the book that sold out in 5 minutes or something? I can't remember.
Yeah.
But we're really fast, super fast.
Yeah.
We have one of those. We also have a full Battlefleet Gothic fleet. It's going to be pro-painted.
Wow.
Now I remember we have heaps of limited edition, with the grand opening of the Warhammer Cafe. So we have heaps of limited edition of wallets and cards and stuff like that.
Cool.
There's going to be even more. There's going to be some background books that's been produced by us. There's going to be some swag bags. There's also the Horus Heresy Weekender swag bag. It's going to go and raffle that off. And yeah, we keep getting donations all the time. And I'm actually, what I need to do, it's my bad form. I should be more prepared for this. I should write everything down. Because right now I need to, because I get in your PM, I'm sending you this and I'm sending you that. So I need to write all that down, because the main focus has always been the main part of the raffle has been the big prizes. And then last year there was heaps of other prizes. But some of those other prizes, people were more interested in the Titan than the Titan. So I should actually write all this down and then
definitely
put it up in the event chat.
It's also one of those things where, when there's one or 3 prizes, you don't think you've got a chance of winning. If there's 10 prizes, then for some reason that just sounds like, oh yeah, I've got a chance. Even and that's how the human brain works a little bit.
I can say historically, for every single raffle, the person, the one that won the Warlord last year, bought 1 raffle ticket. The one that won one of the Night Halves bought 1 raffle ticket. The one that won the Warlord Titan the first time bought 1 raffle ticket. I don't understand. It's it's crazy.
Well, it just shows it's worth having a punt. And I will have a look on the shelves. I think I've certainly got a couple of books that are they're review copies. I will try and see if I can get them, because I'm going to go to Warhammer Fest and hopefully Black Library Live. I will try and get them signed and sent over to you, and I'll have a look around at what else I may or may not have on the shelf to add in as well. I mean, it's not a huge amount when it's compared to a 2,500 point army, but it's something extra.
No, it doesn't matter. I think that the most sought out prize last year wasn't the Titans, is what actually the Realm Chaos signed by everyone in the Horus Heresy design team.
Sure, yeah.
Including the Black Library authors. So it was like everyone wanted to win that. No one cared about the Warlord Titan or the Reaver Titans. Like everyone wanted to win the Realm Chaos copy signed by everyone.
That's it. Well, if you want it signed, you can't pay for that, can you? So yeah, absolutely.
That's good. It's like even the new employee guy that worked for the miniature design studio, the one that did the Dreadnought Drop Pod, it was his first thing.
Yeah,
he just wrote like, I designed the Dreadnought Drop Pod, and then he signed his name. That was his claim to fame.
That's cool. That's super cool. So yeah, there's plenty to get excited about, and you don't take any money for this. It's all handled through. Nope. It's all handled
Everything is done through the parental project. I don't see anything. All that I do is I get from the parental project for muscular dystrophy. All I do is I get an email that's sent through that such and such has donated, and then I add them into the raffle ticket. So I'm just adding. So if you donate $35, that's one raffle ticket. So I have like a massive spreadsheet, and I write down your name, and you get like a number. And that's when we do the draw at today, we do a random number generated, and everyone stands around, and I generate the number, and then I have whoever is next to me to read out the name on that line. So if I draw like 35, and then it says like, Greg Dan, Warlord for you,
I've got that recorded now, so I can play that.
Yeah, exactly. So you do the live streaming and then just cut it in.
Yeah, too right, absolutely. It's a nice, simple-ish way of doing it. So,
and if you live in any other country than Sweden, you can claim this back on tax. There you go.
There we go. So, just to reiterate, that's $35 US a ticket.
Yep, $35 US. It works with credit cards, PayPal, whatever you want to do. If you go through the link is on the event page on the Varangian Heresy. I'll send you a link. Actually, I'll send you a link to the actual donation page.
Sure.
At the donation page, once you click the link, if you don't use your phone app, you have to copy the stupid link into your web browser, because for some reason, when you try to click a link that has been used on a Facebook app thingy, it doesn't work on your computer. I don't know why. Stupid Zuckerberg. But still. So you cut it. Like if it doesn't work, I'll put like important. If it does not work, copy the link and put it in your web browser. But if you go in there and then you actually get into the parental project, which is the kind of charity that funds research in trying to find a cure for DMD, and then you're inside their homepage, and that's where you donate and stuff. So anything that happens is I'll just get an email, but all the funds and everything is sorted by them. Yeah. And you can, if you want to know more what they do with the money, you can go into their just go to their actual homepage, which you can click on a link there, and it says exactly what research project they're funding right now. And the one I'm most excited about is the current gene therapy status, which seems super promising. So, with some luck, in 10 to 15 years, if we keep funding going, we might actually see a cure to this shitty disease. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's amazing what can happen quickly with medical treatments. All of a sudden, they can make a breakthrough somewhere, and it can cause 2-3 other breakthroughs, and maybe not cure it, but maybe make life easier or what have you, at least. So that's really cool. So I just want to reiterate again. So it's $35 US a ticket, and that gets you one entry in.
Yep.
And if you do that, then amazing. Thank you. That's really cool. 3 tickets works out at like $105.
Yep.
Which is it kind of seems like a nice amount, doesn't it? But you know what? If you want to buy one ticket, that's all you can afford. That's all you want to give. Yeah. That's still wonderful. But
well, the thing is, if you don't want to be part of the raffle and want to donate, because I keep getting this question asked, you can still donate. Just write in the comment field like a message. Don't want to be part of the raffle, or just donate $30 or like some weird amount, and realize that you don't care about the tickets because it doesn't divide into 35s. Because I have people that done like, okay, I want to have one raffle ticket and then I want to donate $50 just because I like you. So they get like, one raffle ticket, just put it because of the hell of it, because you want to be a punter, and then like $50 because it's a good cause. Yeah. I've had that, and then also I had if you're interested in supporting the raffle in a kind of event way, I have heaps of gaming clubs that come and they're like, we're going to host one day Heresy playing, and everyone's going to chip in $5 or £5, and then they're just going to put everything into one account and do like a PayPal transaction or whatever. Like we had 15 players, £5, so that's like £75, and we just put that in, and then that like there's no part of raffles. They just said like a Parramatta Gaming Club.
That's cool.
75.
That's really cool. It's good to see people jumping on like that as well. And I suppose we should say, so when does this get drawn? When can people keep putting money in?
They can do it all the way until October. So the first, like historically, we're always done the draw the first weekend of October. And it actually, the only reason we do that is because we have our main grand finale event at Scandus.
Sure.
Which is always, because the venue that we always book it for the first weekend of October. This year, Scandus is the 5th to 6th of October, and apparently we're going to be invaded by British people. I think they've asked me to pre-sale 20 tickets, and I'm like, I can't do that because it's the last event. But if you even can come here because of Brexit, but I don't know what's going on with that.
That'll be fine. Don't you worry about it.
There will never be a Brexit. Keep going. I don't know what's going.
We don't talk about that.
Yeah. So the 6th of October.
Excellent.
We draw it at 1900 or 7 p.m. or that would be 6 o'clock UK time.
Yeah. Simples, and all the winners get posted up.
Yep. So I stand for the postage. So it'll cost me a pretty penny sometimes, but sometimes I negotiate like I did with Gary Lowe. Yeah. You said like if it's okay, we'll just fucking hand courier it to Adepticon, and he was fine with that, and that saved me like Jesus Christ a lot of money. So
yeah, that's cool.
Because the Titan isn't cheap to send.
No, absolutely.
And you don't want it to break or anything because that's terrible. So
yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah, excellent. Just to reiterate again, there's a Facebook events page for it called Heresy Against DMD raffle, so you can go there and see stuff get posted up and keep abreast. And I assume that's where you'll put the list of winners.
Yes, I do. I always do that after the draw. Once the hangover passes from Scandus, I usually put a list there, and I write the name and what they won.
Excellent.
So you don't have to watch the live casting ramblings of me trying to do the draw.
Well, yeah, it sounds like you've got too many English people coming or wanting to come as it is. So this year I might. One year, my wife and I have talked about visiting Sweden, and I'm like, well, I've been before years ago a few times, but if I go, I might as well add an event on to the end of it, mightn't I? So maybe next year I'll be heading over that way. We shall see. But you don't have to be. All the stuff goes on there. It's charity doing good things. It's a chance to win something really cool, and I want to say thank you to anyone who's ever put in to stuff like this, because painting an army takes time and effort. And swearing and everything else that I'm sure it does when you're trying to build whatever you're trying to build. And over the last 3 years, you've had a range of people putting their time and effort in. And I think that's fantastic as well.
Yeah, it's awesome. I tell you, I'm becoming like a pro of assembling all kinds of weird Forge World stuff.
Yeah.
I have to say though that their instruction the instructions has increased since I started this hobby.
Yeah, they have got a lot better. There are still some where they're a little bit like put part A and part C together, and then third picture is complete tank.
Or like the first one, there was like you remember back in the day, it was like a copied of a photocopy. It's been copied so many times. It was like black and white, terrible, and it was like one page. This will be included in your kit. And the next page, this is what will look like when you assemble it.
Yes, and that's it. Yeah.
You're like, what the fuck? What's going on?
Some arrows you can't see. Yeah, it's some of their Primarchs are still a little bit like that, but it's good on Forge World. Bless them. Awesome. Anything else you think we should add in before we?
Nothing all, and like all the donations are super appreciated. Like, and I just want to thank everyone that has already donated. And I want to thank everyone that's going to donate already. And it's just, every single time it kind of chokes me up at the day when I always read out how much money we get, because I always get nervous like 2 weeks before it. But we have always reached our goal, which is amazing. And that's just because of you guys. So,
sure.
It's super cool.
And I'm on the parent project page at the moment. So the goal's $40,000.
Yep.
And you're at 32,062. So there's your target, people.
Yeah.
Let's go and smash it.
Another eight grand or something.
Absolutely.
Roughly.
No worries. We'll get people on it. It's fine.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for joining me, Freddie.
No worries. Thanks.
And I'm sure we'll have you on again soon. And once again, do you want to pronounce the name of your podcast?
The Varangian Heresy Podcast.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, and I'll speak to you later.
All right, see you, man.
And that's another episode done. It's just myself closing out the show. Just going to remind you of a couple of little things. Tickets for the Reckoning of Dalen Prime in August on Bank Holiday weekend, 24th-ish. That's the latest event I'm running, and you can play 3,000 points of frontline heresy, in inverted commas. Centurion, Orzain Botalis is also available, and Adeptus Titanicus. It's all like the baseline is like the default, if you will, is to play 3,000 point games. But if there's opportunity and you wish to play, there's opponents, then you can play other systems as well, all feeding into that narrative. As we said at the start of the show, you can find all the details on the Facebook group. Go to the events part of that, or go to theimperialtruth.com. In the top right, there's a link through to the Reckoning, and it's got a link to the pack. Tells you how to go about getting how to get tickets and all that jazz. So that's cool. We've got a few events coming up. We've got Warhammer Fest. I'm going to be there on the Saturday, and Neil's going to be there on the Sunday, I believe. So if you're at that event, maybe we'll try and wear our shirts or whatever, but feel free to come and say hi. I'm also doing the CK painting course in London with Vince Ventrilla. It's how to paint units, I think it's called, something like that. Either way, we talked about it last episode. I've signed up for that as well, so that'll be interesting. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that after we've done it. And I've got a feeling there's some other stuff, but I can't remember it off the top of my head as usual. Not that well organised, unfortunately. All the social media stuffs, all the links are in the show notes. Again, if you don't know them by now, the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram. I'm going to put all the details for the Heresy raffle into the show notes as well. So If you do just want to go there and click on links, that'll take you through to Freddie's Facebook page and to the parent project site as well, just to make things a little bit easier for everyone. If you do want to contact, feel free at any point to send me an email, greg@theimperialtruth.com. Again, that link's in the show notes as well. It's always good to hear feedback, good to hear ideas. If you've got questions, feel free to fire them over. I'm not sure there's a huge amount more for me to bang on about. I think I'm going to go and pick up my copy of Book 8 and go and sit and read a little bit more about Demons of the Ruinstorm. So until next time, you have been listening to The Imperial Truth.